Ladies and gentlemen, I am known as Mr. Vicious. Remo Vinci! All right, we're back with part 2 of my conversation with Douja. He just got done explaining his miracle of childbirth with us, and I'm sure y'all got a whole lot of that graphic imagery just like I did. So thank you, Douja, for sharing all that with us.
I was trying to, like a good author, when he writes, you can picture the image in your head. So I try to, how do you say, articulate my words.
Exactly. I'm trying to forget all of it right now as we speak. Because I didn't have that same type of experience when I became a father. We had C-sections. So, I told you my birthing story. You remember how they were ripping, how you said they had to cut Sarah. Well, they actually ripped my baby mom's open, in her stomach. And I had one nurse on one side of her and another nurse on the other side of her. And they're like yanking. And I'm on the other side of the sheet trying to keep her calm and talk about cheese and stuff. And I'm looking on this side and they're just yanking the crap out of her. And I'm like, got mortified, like how you were. That was a perfect word to use. So yeah, we got some crazy birthing stories for our first time fathers. That's pretty
And then,
awesome.
and then,
But
like the other ones after, I have 4 kids, people don't know, 2 baby moms, but, the other ones weren't so bad with Sarah. We kind of knew what we're doing. We're kind of expecting it. The other kids just kind of came out. She already had,
yeah,
real. But Trinity and Amber was a C-section, and so the mom, I seen Amber's mom. It was her, the first grandbaby. She really
yeah,
wanted to be back there and see it. I was like, I asked Amber. I said, is it fucked up if I let your mom go instead of me? Because I kind of wanted her to go, and plus I seen that stuff, so I was just like, it's a win-win
yeah,
for me. She goes and I'll have to see it. Cool, fine with me. And so yeah, it was really cool. The mom came out. She told me how it happened and everything. She just thought it was the coolest thing that she ever seen in her life, and she just thanked me. She was like on cloud nine about it. It was like it was a real cool experience for those two. So I was kind of grateful that I got to, you know I didn't get to see Trinity, but I was grateful that I let her take my place, because yeah, back then, and when Trinity was born, you're only allowed one person back there.
hmm.
See, when Sarah was born, we were allowed like 3, 5. I mean, there was a bunch of us. What the hell? But yeah,
Again, every episode, something.
I know, fucking D. But yeah, so yeah, with Trinity it wasn't so bad, because like I said, I they said they cut it open and then they pull it back and they bring her out. But yeah, I was like, but with Trinity, I mean, my youngest daughter, I've pretty much raised her from birth, and the older kids spent some time with their mom for a few years and then they came back with me, but they've been,
Yeah.
shoot, we try to add it up, man. It's a lot of years now, like 12, 13 years or something like that. They've been with me now.
Yeah,
But
well, I remember you were fighting pretty hard to get him back because it was a pretty rough patch for you that time when you didn't have him. And we
yeah.
talked about
Oh,
how I was pretty self-destructive after losing my dad. I feel like you kind of went through that same type of thing when you and Sarah split and you
I,
didn't have kids or any of that kind of stuff. You also kind of got real self-destructive for a while. Let's talk about that for a minute.
yeah, yeah. So like, me and Sarah, we're both young, whatever. From my point of view, I mean, her point of view is probably different. I'm the asshole or whatever. But anyways, um, we get along to this day somewhat. We just don't. I don't talk to her. The kids do. The kids are old enough. I don't need to talk to the moms. They have their relationship. Anyways, um, me and Sarah, it came to a point where all my attention and everything was for the kids. Because, like I said before, I always wanted my own family. So Sarah was not getting the type of attention that she needed. And she wanted to be a wife, not just a baby mom. There was certain things that I was not giving her, so she went and kind of looked for that attention and stuff somewhere else. So she ended up cheating with one of my good friends at the time. I mean, he was like one of my right hand dudes. I wouldn't say like good friends. He was just kind of, when I look at it now, he is just kind of some piece of shit that was around. I mean, I don't know how to say it any other way, but their story ended up pretty. They got real bad into drugs and meth. But but at the time when Sarah left me, she said it was because I was a piece of shit, that I drank too much. She said all this stuff about me, but it wasn't that. She was just trying to distract me from her messing around with this dude. So I quit everything for a little bit. I got complete sober. It was hard to sleep because I was used to drinking myself to bed all the time. But then I found out she didn't leave me because of that. She left me because she wanted to be with this dude. And when I found out who it was, it just made me laugh so hard because she like downgraded like a motherfucker. I ever since then, like I've had numerous girlfriends and everything, and I've had a lot of good relationships and cool ones. Had a lot of cool girls. Her It's been a bad drug addict. He basically turned her. Sarah, me and Sarah used to party. We like to do mushrooms. We like to smoke weed, and we used to drink. Our rule in our house was that was it. No cocaine, no meth, no ecstasy, no none of that. You know, that was strictly that. That was it. You couldn't do no more. But we used to drink a lot, pretty good back then. We used to throw big barbecues for everybody, and we had a good time. But anyways, she ended up leaving me, going with that guy and stuff, and then yeah, when I would wake up in the morning, I was used to my kids waking me up every morning. That was my highlight. I'd wake them up, make them breakfast. Dad, let's make. What do you want? Cereal, pancakes? What do you want? So I was kind of dedicated to the kids, and when they left and the house was quiet again, um, that was depressing as hell. Like I still to this day, I don't like the quietness. Like I always have something running. Like even at night, they say I have my fan on. I'll be cold, but they say just because of the sounds, like soothing to you.
Yeah.
So like I always hated the quietness. So that kind of led to stuffed vices to kind of block that shit out. So when I found out, like I said, Sarah was messing around with this guy, I was like, "Fuck that! I'm going back to drinking. I'm gonna tear shit up now." So, I did a lot of ecstasy. I At the time, uh, ecstasy was blowing up real big in Denver, man. People were throwing these massive raves, like it was everywhere, like and there was a few, and then there was like few drugs that come around. I never did methamphetamines. I did my fair share of cocaine, but I wasn't like an addict, you know what I mean? Like we would get together, we'd throw a party or something, maybe we'd pop some pills and dance around with glow sticks and some music, and it was a fucking night. We'd have fun, like especially on the mushrooms. I mean, I truly believe that like mushrooms ain't just like a drug to like um I don't know. Like a lot of people say that they like to do it to get high, but I've learned and seen and I've opened my mind and different things on mushrooms. I've used them in different ways, and stuff, but and so I was started experimenting kind of a little more things and drinking a lot more. Plus they had down the street they had free beer night. So from 9 to 11 we paid $3 and drink all the beer we wanted. so
I
so
remember.
Yeah, so
I
um
just so y'all know, I was there for a lot of that.
yeah. Yeah. Well, because we had a big like we had the Deadly Alliance. There was like 9 or 8 of us or something. We had a big crew of friends, Like Remo had the Goat Hill people and Eastside Mike and all them, like that kind of got brought around. Jeremiah knew all these people too. Like, you know, there was Ryan that came in, rest in peace, then I had my set of friends with Javon, Gene, my older homies, and this and that. So there was a lot of Ben and Eric. We had a lot of people around us at all the times. Pretty big, large circles. But there's our inner circle. That kind of keep it tight.
That's funny.
Uh,
Yeah, yeah, definitely. That's kind of when when things started blowing up as far as like our crew goes, as far as the DA and as far as like all of our experimenting self-destructive tendencies, they all kind of came to a head in those days. So that was a pretty tumultuous time for all of us, really. But I remember for you specifically, it was kind of a trip because I think everybody was real sour about what happened with you and Sarah, and it was kind of funny because we were all kicking it with you, and I remember hearing from Sarah about her being like really hurt and like sad and stuff, that it was like everybody kind of abandoned her and was like kicking it with you. You know what I mean? So it just kind of, it was what it was, but things just happen the way that they do, and God only knows the reasons why for stuff, and like I was kind of alluding to earlier, like you had to go through this time in order to get him back, because you fought really hard. And I remember those days when you were going to court and you were doing all these things to try and get him back. It wasn't a easy time for you, but I remember once you did, I was so proud of you because, I remember the self-destructive stuff. And I remember that time in your life where it didn't seem as though, that kind of stuff was going to come. So when it did, I was just I was over the moon for you. I still feel terrible about things with Sarah, because I love Sarah too. She was a wonderful person. She was an incredible friend. We were all like a big
yeah,
family, So I
yeah.
still pray for her, and
It, it was
and we
cool
actually,
too.
go ahead.
Like the last times we seen her, me and Sarah were like on good terms, and she was like the Sarah I remember. But that was when she was sober. For whatever reasons, Sarah just has a real hard time struggling with drugs, and I didn't really realize it how I was fighting custody for the kids. They pulled all our records. They pulled all the shit out because and they Sarah had a list of pills and stuff that she was on. Like it was a big fucking list. And the social worker said he seen her paper and he said, "Ma'am, this stuff right here," and he flips it. "This is signs of a drug addict." And she said, "Well, I need surgery." And he said, "Well, now's the time to do that surgery." Because she's always supposedly had. So what happened was, this is kind of educational for people that have babies at a young age and back to back. Her spine and her pelvic bone were like not lined up. They were kind of like this. So she was always in back pain because we had my son and daughter back to back. They're 11 months apart. So that jacked Sarah. So the only thing that would help her is the pain pills. So,
Yeah,
pain, and that's what, I mean, there's, I don't know how much percentage of the US is going through opiate crisis right now with, pain pills and stuff like that. But
that's nothing else.
yeah, and yeah, but so that was kind of her story with that. But I didn't realize how much pain pills and everything that she was literally on until we were there fighting. But yeah, back to that real quick. Like a side note, I fought 10 months in court against the social services system and my baby mom for full custody of my kids. Um, it was crazy, dude, because I kind of want to write a book about it. Um, but I'll sum it up real kind of quick. But basically, I went in there, and I ain't saying I was perfect at the time either. Like when all this shit went down, I was just barely start. So Sarah hid the kids from me for a while, so I didn't know where the kids were when she was with John and stuff. So I would have to bribe her, like hey, let me buy him school clothes, let me buy him this, buy him that, and then she let me see him. So then we would get to see it, And I was talking to her that week. I was that Friday. I was gonna take her and the kids to go get school supplies. I come home that Wednesday that week, and there's a note on my door for me to call this number. Blah blah blah. It's this nice writing. I thought it was like some crazy detective or some cop. Um, and I was like freaking out. I ain't calling this number. Like fuck that. I called the number and they said, um, we just want to let you know your kids were in a raid this morning. They've been hit with flash grenades and we're checking them out at the hospital before we release them to custody to you. Click. And I'm like, what the fuck did I just hear? So
Right?
I call up Sarah. Hey, why are the what is this? Oh, fuck you. You're a piece of shit. The kids aren't going to release you to custody to you because they're going over your record and you're a piece of shit. I'm like, and then click. I'm like, what the fuck? So then I call Candace. Fucking Candace, same shit. You're a piece of shit. Da, 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 da. Hangs
Yeah.
up. I call my mom. I'm fucking livid now. My mom, like I said earlier, my mom's my therapist and calms me down. I'm like, Mom, this is what just happened. Blah, blah, blah. She said, I always told you, Joey, to be prepared. Those kids are just going to land in your lap one day. And she used to say that shit all the time. She said, I always told you, be prepared for this. Be prepared. So sure enough, this was about noon, 1 o'clock. The kids showed up at my doorstep about 9 o'clock in the evening and fucking flip flops in their underwear practically because what happened was the cops raided the house at 5:30 in the morning and they threw a fucking flash grenade in there where the kids were sleeping and so the kids are literally fucking flash grenaded out of sleep in their room in their fucking pajamas. So when they came over like that, I remember I'd go spend like freaking $200 or something like that right away on clothes because they had nothing. So, I mean, what happened was the the mom, not Sarah so much because it was more the boyfriend and them. I don't know who played what part in it. I just know what the police reports say. So I'm not trying to badmouth nobody or anything. But they were supposedly cooking meth in the house and it was under a 6-month investigation and they raided the house and they had kids in there. They said it was like basically like a trap house where there was junkies just shooting people passed out everywhere, mold, all kinds of like the reports are wild, dude. I have like so much paperwork. So I so all this went down and they were trying to release custody of the kids to me. Temporary custody, keep in mind. The state had custody of the kids. They took custody of the kids when this raid went down because social workers got involved in all this and that. So we go to the first meeting. This is where they tell me, hey, there's no man has ever raised 4 kids on his own that we ever heard of. It can't be done. And I said, well, I sure know not to cook meth around them. And everybody shut the fuck up at that table. There was probably about 12 people at that table who were all in this. And so basically, long story short, these guys were fucking sabotaging and they kept saying, oh, Joe wants co-custody of the kids. But as the kids hung out with me more and telling me more stories about stuff, it became really weird where I came to a point where I had to protect my kids against their mom. So that was just kind of blew my mind. But as these stories would surface, said fuck that. So my mom actually came up from New Mexico and me and her started researching the case ourselves and we actually became our own lawyers and we've won the case. They didn't like us at the end because they would pull out their notebooks with their stuff, we'd pull out ours with our stuff and point out all their flaws in their system and everything and how broken the system was. And they didn't like us. So at the end of it, and they court ordered me to do co-parenting with Sarah, right? Because Sarah was just being an ass. Sarah gets arrested for driving and shoplifting. She has to do 30 days in jail. So I say, I got court ordered to do co-parenting. So I know she's in jail because she calls me. And I say, all right, I'm gonna call up my co-parenting class and schedule it. And knowing that she can't make it, you know what I mean? So when I called
Yeah.
them up, the social worker was like, "That's the last straw." She's like, "I'm granting sole custody to the kids to you, and we're gonna go to court and finalize it all." I like to tell everybody, I've been to court a lot of times for just stupid shit, but this was the most important case, and it was the only case I ever won in my life. But when they granted me custody, I was like this in court. I was trying, you gotta be professional and shit. I jumped up like this, yes, and I was like, oh, hey, oh, sorry, yeah, go ahead, Your Honor, you know, and yeah, dude, we fought that, won the case, and yeah, the kids, I had custody of them for that, and even when I had custody, like I said, I told Sarah, hey, dude, let's stop fighting. Let's get the state from having custody of our kids. Because we don't want them in foster care and we don't want them all that. I said, you could come to my house all you want. Sarah would come over and spend the night. She spent New Year's with us. Like, it was no, I just told her, let's just not have them because you can come over and visit all you want. Like, I respect your space. You respect mine. So, but yeah, we were cool and everything. But like I said, she got back into the drugs real bad and just one dark road after the next. Yeah. But
Well,
yeah, it's been
I think that's a lot of interesting stuff there, and I hope that people take a lot of that stuff to heart, and it could help things out. Um, I do, like I said a minute ago, like I pray for Sarah still, like she's a wonderful person. I know, like, same thing like with my brother, like when these type of addictions or these type of things, attach themselves to you, it's damn near impossible, for some people to get out of it. So, and good people. So I pray for him and I hope for good things, and I appreciate you being vulnerable and sharing all that story with us. Um, but I would like to segue away from it a little bit and get more into the music stuff, because we haven't even really touched on any of that so far. And you have like we talked about yesterday, music's always been such a big part of both of our lives. So tell me who your early influences were, and how that kind of came about and what you were listening to from the get. Because I know you were also like me, where you didn't have hip hop right from the very beginning. You had other influences first. So tell me about that.
well, so my dad, I like to say this. I was raised on rock and roll and I make rap music. I'm a rock and roller at heart all day long. But I
Mm-hmm.
love spitting some shit on some beats. My dad, he was into like Pink Floyd, like the mellower rock, Bon Jovi. My stepdad was into the harder rock, Scorpions, Metallica, stuff like that. So both of them actually influenced me with rock. I remember my dad back in the day. We didn't have He had tapes. He had these big cassette tape boxes, and we when we go on road trips, we play a game. He picked an album, I picked an album. He always picks Pink Floyd because that's his favorite band. So I
Yeah.
just always thought it was so cool, like how they with the guitars and how they can make these sound. Like it was just so badass to me. And then when I started hearing like more upbeat, like rock, like boom, boom, yeah, dude, it was badass. Well,
No
living here and where I'm at in Tears Truth or Consequences, we all call it TRC for short. It's all country. I hated country music. Well, I still kind of do. I don't like to say hate it, but I just don't listen to country music. Part of the reason is because that was the only music I had exposure to was country music. We didn't have radio stations and stuff. I remember when I went to Denver, I was like, what? KS 107.5. Shit. What? Smooth Jam Sunday? What? Like it just blew my mind. So the funny thing is my homeboy Carlos Delgado, he's good people. Um, he was one of my homies that was like my down ass homie. Like he uh he would show me rap music. He's the first one I smoked weed with, out of our can and shit. And I ran away with him, like he my, we've had our ups and downs or whatever, But anyways, he was like, "Hey, check this shit out, bro. This is fucking rap music." We were young ass kids. he had a CD of Bone Thugs and Harmony, Creeping on the Come Up. He's like checking
Yeah.
out his skull on it and stuff. It was fucking cool, dude. I only seen like rock stuff, you know what I mean, and country, and so we put it on, and I'm like, what the fuck are they saying? He's like, you know what I mean, all fast and shit, like what? And he's like, dude, that's these all they're speed rapping and shit. That shit's tight. And then I used to go to El Paso a lot still because my brother's families lived in El Paso still, and I'm still real close to them. They're out in Arizona now. We're actually gonna go see them in May. But um, my aunt Mandy was showing me stuff down there, music. So she showed me Tupac, and at the time, it was kind of funny how things happen. We had this grocery store called Furs. Furs had a little movie section you can rent uh DVDs or movies, VHS, whatever, you know. They had this little box, maybe like that big with CDs you could buy. Every CD in there was either Spanish or country. I always would just look at it all the time I went up there just because I was bored. My mom would pick out the movies and I'd just go look at the things. Well, one day there was a Tupac Me Against the World CD in there when I was small. And I said, what the fuck? I asked them, hey, can I see that? I asked my mom for some money to buy a CD. My mom didn't think nothing of it back then. Oh, yeah, sure. She gave me the money. The lady I remember was like, I'm not supposed to sell this to you because I had the parental advisory on it. And I was like, oh, man. Oh, I didn't know that. She said, but I'll sell it to you. Sold it to me. Man, when I still to this day that album hits me so different because just like that Me Against the World, dude, that's how I felt at the time because I didn't like my home life. I just like school, it was just like me against all of them, and he was my greatest influence was Tupac, like and I bought his biography book, and then he died. I remember I was sad. Me and my homies got all high. We was like, "Fuck, love Tupac." And then I even was like, I never listened to East Coast music for a long time because I was like, "Nah, I'm a pop writer, nah." No, when that East West Coast was going on, but it was dumb because that's a whole nother genre and side of music that people don't. I didn't realize. So it was
Yeah.
Tupac and Bone were the main two that really influenced me in the get with the from the hip hop, and then like I said, now I write rhymes here. I write poems. So what happened
Mhm.
was eighth grade, I come up here to Huron Middle School. My English teacher, she kind of it's like put the little spark, a little thing in me, and we had to write this thing, and at the end of the book it said he stands in a field under the stars smelling freedom or something like that. It was a kind of a patriot book about when they were fighting in the colonial days and this and that. So she said, I want you guys to write a paragraph of what that means. So me being a smartass, I wrote a page and a half, and I was rhyming words in it, and I started popping off and saying all kinds of shit in there. Dude, I got like extra credit. I got the highest grade in class. Like I had a fucking A plus. It was the highest grade I ever. I never had the highest grade in class in my life. So I
Mhm.
was like, fuck yeah. And then she pulled me aside and she said, you have a talent with writing, and you should really look into that and get into it. And I just kind of like, okay. And then so ninth grade, I go to Northglenn. My English teacher, she sees I have a talent in writing, so she gives me all these special projects that I get to do that the class don't get to do. So one of the things was is I got to write an autobiography on Tupac. So that shit was cool. And then I started getting better at my writing and rhyming and this and that. And then but poems, and then like then I after high school, I with Sarah and this and that, and I kind of rap was still always there, but I always thought it'd be kind of cool to rap, but I never was like that's what I want to do, or anything like that. So fast forward, we would everybody used to when I came to Colorado and we'd go to parties. people will be kicking off these ciphers. And I just thought it was the coolest shit because people will be playing music, and back then a cipher was some they would just rap over the beats of what would just come to their head and click, boom, 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 boom. Ciphers now is just like solely different. A lot of ciphers stuff I see from, but we'd go to parties, and then we get they get these big ciphers going, people busting raps, and then people start battling, and it would be funny because like motherfuckers would clown, and we'd always send my homeboy Ash, our homie Ashes, in there to handle that shit because he'd always tear him up. So that got the freestyling going. So at the time, I was reading all these crazy books too, like about aliens and all this wild shit. So I said, I want to say like the most fucked up things I could think of when I'm in the circle ciphering in at these parties. And I used to get a kick out of it, man. I'd be up in there like aliens are about to probe you, and like say some wild shit. And I'd see all these people just like total shock because everybody's like rapping about tough shit. I'm a gangster, I'm this and that. And then you have me going there like talking about government corruption and all this wild shit. And so I used to call it the shock factor. So I'd get a kick out of people when I would fucking hit them with that shock factor. And then so um fucking so then down the road, me and Sarah were back over here living with the Papo. And my next door neighbor, shout out to Curtis and Danielle, Curtis and Cole, what's up? DJ Chai Flow. Anyways, he was running a radio station in his house. And it was pretty wild because there's an AM radio station, and it was a guy like Alex Jones that used to expose stuff on the radio, but on the real radio. They used to run this radio station out of his garage. Curtis got all his equipment because he seen an ad for hiring for a sound engineer, and he just applied for it, and the guy said, "Cool, I'll hire you." So he taught Curtis how to record and do all this stuff, right? So one day I go over there, and I met Curtis on New Year's and Danielle. We clicked right away because they had 3 kids, or no, I don't know how many kids. They got like 6 kids or something. I don't know. They have a lot of kids. Anyways, they had kids. We had kids. Our kids are around the same age. We'd go over there and hang out. We're all kind of like big family there too. Like I said, there was big families within families and family. Anyways, Curtis had all these equipment. I get off work, and he calls me up. He says, "Hey, stop by my house." So I said, "Okay." I stopped by, I go in his garage. This fool has mics set up like it looked like a radio station. And I was like, you remember the setup. But I'll flash pictures of that shit on here. But anyways, um he said, "Hey, what would you do with all this?" And I'm like, what? Like, what was this cool? Like, cause um I was like, record, bro. Like shit. He's like, "Well, are you ready? Let's start." And I go, I can't start right now. Everybody's going to the house. Friday night, everybody would come party with us. Like that was our thing. So he said, just bring everybody over here. So I said, fuck it. Go over there. Man, we all squeezed in that garage. He put the headphones on. Any beat, we tell him, hey, one of our favorite beats, me and Remo got some mixtape to it, is that paparazzi beat by Exhibit. One of my favorite go-to beats to freestyle on it. And we would just tell Curtis, give me this beat, give me this beat, give me this beat. And that's where I came up with that saying, feed me a beat. That was another freestyle I did down the road on Mo Murda beat. And Curtis, we'd just be in the headphones, drinking, smoking, and Curtis would just be on the computer getting us beats and feeding them to us and recording the whole time. And we would go, like we were saying, dude, we start at 7, 8, 9. We go till the morning. I remember so many times I'd walk back home and the sun would be on. Like, all drunk and everything, and we just drunken style all night. We just freestyle and just hear beats and beats and beats. And then at that time, that's when Remo was already recording. But that's when the DA came upon and stuff. And then Remo was like, dude, you should try, write some shit down and do stuff like that. And I wrote stuff down, but I never rapped. So it was kind of funny. Like I kind of touched on it a little, but I didn't know how to not read. I hated reading out loud, So when I read my raps, it was like I was reading a book, and like real stuttering and blah. And then they were like, "No, you gotta flow it like how you do in your freestyle." And I couldn't comprehend and do it for a while. But then as I got into it more and more and more and more, I got better and better. So then I used to, um, Curtis and Danielle went through like kind of rough patch. I moved away. Me and Sarah moved away. I didn't really talk to them as much. So I wasn't recording over there too much. But they just haven't got released yet. But we have a lot of footage of the Drunken Style era at Curtis's house.
That
The
was
era
the
didn't.
original style and
Yeah,
stuff.
that was yeah. And then the funny thing was my logo at the time was a guy barfing on a microphone, very graphic looking, right? I even had a relate make me a logo for it, and that was my logo, but it was me throwing up. Well, anyways, one time we were over there in Rigo, one of my old homies. He went to throw up. He went like this, and it came out like this, all over the microphone. And I go, "Oh shit! Someone threw up on the mic," because that was our slogan, rap,
Yeah.
drunken style, freestyle. It's how you throw up on the mic. And he really was like, it was all. And Curtis like, "Hey man, that's my fucking equipment." And I'm like, I never seen you would believe what happened. I know, man, it was so funny. But Curtis was like, he's a few years older than me, so he was kind of like he's like an older brother figure to me. Even to this day, I always tell him that shit. He's kind of like an older brother. So there's older brother like, "Hey, it's my fucking equipment." And I'm like, "Oh my God, somebody actually threw up on the mic. Oh, what the, and then he's like, dude, but with Curtis too, I was kind of touched on it earlier. With Curtis he would be on some ecstasy or some mushrooms, zoned out, feeding us beats. Man, me and him tripped a lot of mushrooms in that garage. We seen a lot of wild. We watched the all of Cypress Hills videos on music videos on mushrooms, and we watched that Insane in the Membrane, and we're like laughing so hard. He's insane in the membrane, we're like, yeah. Like, so like Curtis is one of really good friends, and his his story is pretty wild. But we'll get into that. But anyways, after Curtis's, I bought a laptop, but I didn't know how to do anything. I didn't know how to make beat. My homie Anton, beats. We've interviewed him on the Dro Bros. He was like, "You gotta learn how to use Reason." I'm like, "Reason," and then the homie Relate too was like, Reason's where it's at, man. Reason is a beat program. And that fucking program, bro, took me months to just learn how to put a drum line in, like, and
Yeah.
I was like, I hated that program. So I bug Anton for a beat all the time. We still bug Anton for beats, and and
When that's your last name as far as your stage name goes, then it kind of comes with the territory. So Anton Beats, like that's just how it goes.
right. So, and real quick before I get more into it, the whole name's SoulDouja. So I was getting high one day and I kind of thinking like, what could, because at the time you guys were calling me Joe the Soul, and I like that. I like the soul because I always believe that there's an energy, a spirit, or something inside of us, the soul. I've always believed in that, like really deeply since I was a young kid. Like I said, I feel like I do talk to people's souls and stuff like that. But so I said, I like that, the soul. And I was like, what else do I really believe in? What? And I was like, wow, there's the weed. And I was like, soul weed? No, no. So, and then I was like, Doja. Ooh, yeah. So it also has I also believe in it also has the word, um the way I spell it was like SOULDOUJA. You could also put soul and JA together to make soldier, like SoulDouja, you know, because I always believe that um you gotta be, it's not about being in the army and enlisted as a soldier. It's about being a righteous soldier for this holy war and this thing that's going on and the big thing. And plus a soldier could be like, you gotta wake up and go to work. That could be like a soldier. You gotta handle your stuff and you gotta do what you gotta, and that's what I feel like that soldier part of that is now. So I, those three words, I combined it, SoulDouja, because like I said, that's three things I kind of believe in a lot, is with the soul, the weed, and being like basically being a man, manning up, doing your things.
So
But
let me ask you this: you've never let anybody kind of deter you from making music, and you've had a lot of haters because you have a specific style that doesn't necessarily cater to everybody, and you've actually gotten quite a bit of ridicule from a lot of people for stuff like that. How have you dealt with that kind of stuff, and how have you not ever let that really affect you or hinder any of your progress?
like I always like believe you put something in your head, you do it. My uncle John, I have to give him credit for that because he was always like, don't let people judge you and don't let people opinions, you know, get to you basically. But yeah, bro, there was a lot. I mean, still to this day, I mean, there's some stuff, I get hated on and stuff, but now I just kind of laugh about it and stuff. But I remember like stuff, with homies, and like I would pay to record, and homeboy put stupid shit in the songs that I didn't want, and he just said, "Well, that's funny and stuff," and I'd be like, "I don't want that in there." Like one thing that I was like kind of strict on, and in the beginning was using the N word, and dude put that in there, and I didn't like that in my song because that was a misrepresentation of me, and
Yeah.
um, and so I would get real tired of paying these people, and they would fuck up my music. They wouldn't do it how I wanted it. So like at the time, Anton was coming up on equipment too, and he wanted to do a project and experiment with the vocals. And he used to get a kick out of me because there's a few people, basically like the people that would encourage me outweighed the hate by far. So like Anton was like one of them that would encourage me, like, "Oh, dude, you should say something like this." Like me and him we would make diss tracks on each other, and we would laugh. Like we have little cut down lines back and forth, and we would laugh. And he would record his, like, "Oh, all right, you fucker," I write my stuff down, and I go on there, and like and then he's like, "Let's make a song that makes sense, that has nothing to do with anything, and just make it as stupid as we can." So we made this song called Poop on a Stick, you know? And it was like the dumbest stuff, but it was just funny to us. So like there's a few homies that were always like, "Oh, you gotta be gangster, you gotta be tough." And then there was the other homies that were like, "No, you should be funny and stuff." Like Mikey was like one of them. We'd get kicked out of making writing funny lines. And so like both of those kind of was like coming together, but I was like rolling into conspiracies and all this stuff. So I was like, I want to just like mold it all together. So yeah, when I would go to people's studios and I'm talking about all this messed up shit, and they're like, "Whoa." People never heard people like rapping like that and stuff. And then like, and then I remember for a minute, I was like, "Damn, bro, I don't know if I should talk about this stuff." But then I came across Immortal Technique, and he raps about a lot of government corruption and stuff. And I said, "Damn, this fool's actually really educated, putting these big words together and doing all that." And then I came across this guy Necro, and he's another independent artist, and he kind of says a lot of hardcore stuff too. So when I heard those two, I said, "Shit, bet, dude, I'm gonna stick to my style, and I want to still keep crazy." So then um I didn't have no equipment, and I was getting hated on. But then Anton came up on some equipment. He's like, "Hey, let's do a project together." And so each day we'd go over there, and it was like about a 2 month process. We did I called it the Invasion album. and that'll probably never get released. I have it, but yeah, it's a trip. But we did about 17 tracks, you know. We would go over there and he would just be like start making drums, and we would just kind of start piecing the music together, and then, you know, we'd come up with ideas. What should we write this song about? What should we do this? What should we do that? And then we kind of just write it out. And then at the time, the homie Smokeface too came around, and I was doing tracks with him. So he did an album through Anton too at the time, called Coochie Monster, and that album was hilarious. He was another one too. This fool was like gangster as shit all the time, but he was also funny as fuck, and he would be like encouraging that on me. He'd be like, and then kind of, and then like kind of show how the ties go in. With my homeboy Carlos that I mentioned earlier, this was his older cousin from Denver, Mike, and so he was like, "Yeah, bro." He's like, "You know, I like how you do your shit, you know, and you say funny, obnoxious shit." And he would encourage stuff, you know, like, "Yeah, you should write that." So, he finished the Coochie Monster, and then we started talking with Swifty again. So me, him, and Swifty did a mixtape, and that shit's pretty badass. I listen to that shit all the time. I want to release that too. Like, I just don't know how and when yet, but you know, and so we did a mixtape, and then I still didn't have no equipment at the time, you know. And then I think around that time I might have came back to New Mexico for a while or something, but I kind of didn't fuck with music for a while until I started buying, because I would get discouraged, you know. I'd go to these studios, and I think I was laying this dope as shit, you know, and these guys have, you know, hey, you should rap about the latest shoes that came out, bro. You know, the Air Force Ones or something. You know, that's what's hot. And I'd be like, no, I want to rap about. I want people to listen to a track, and I want them to learn something. You know, I want them to be like, what the fuck is he talking about? I want to know what that means and look it up. So like, um, I was just kind of discouraged for a while. So you know, we freestyle, and I always freestyle and kept it going. But down the road, I came up on some money. I bought my own equipment,
Mm.
and then that's where Drunken Styles second era, I would like to say, kind of rebirth. And that's when the Drunken Masters were born. That's a throwback track. Well, actually, that was probably one of the first tracks we recorded on that computer, actually. But
I
we
remember. And by the way,
so
that was the only verse I've ever gotten paid for.
oh yeah. Mm.
Ever.
It was because like I still like use this term, but I was always taught like break bread so we could all jump ahead. Um,
Mhm.
when I came up, I tried to help everybody out as I can. You know, even if I wasn't giving you direct cash, I still helped you out. You know what I mean? Like I, I took Jeremiah out for his birthday. He talks about that shit all the time. It was, you know, one of his best birthdays he had. We had a wild night, ended in the hotel with some wild women, and it was a great time. Yeah, no, that's another story for another time. That'll be on the NC 17 rated podcast. But yeah, you know, so I started coming up on equipment, but it was funny because I was buying all this stuff, but I didn't know how to use it. You know what I mean? It's like, well, how do I record? How do I do this? How do I do that? And then again, with the hate, a lot of people don't want to tell you the secrets on how to record music and how to edit and all that because they want you to go to them. They want you to pay them. One
Yeah.
of the only homies that was down about that was Relate. And I have to give Relate one props for that because he told me, even with that Reason program, I said, man, I can't get this fucking pro. He's like, you gotta just listen, bro. You gotta just get an ear for it. And I'm like, the kind of shit is this, man? You know, but I understood after a while. It was truth. You gotta listen and listen and listen. You gotta get an ear for it. And then you can hear the beats. You can count the bars in your head. You know, it works. Like it clicks, but it's a lot of listening, you know, and but when we started the second era of the Drunken Styles, you know, I was basically kind of homeless, but I had a lot of cash, so I would buy whatever. I was trying to buy the best of the best at the time, you know, and I bought a Mac computer. I remember I opened the Mac and I said, "Where's the rest of the computer?" I didn't realize everything was built into the screen, you know. And I was
Yeah,
like, I was like, "Where's the tower?"
yeah. I remember being tripped out by that too.
I don't know.
So when you started this second era of Drunken Styles, that's when you got the logo. That's when we started making the drunken tapes. That's when all of that kind of stuff started happening. Like you said, you had
Yeah.
fallen into some money, and you know you were trying to do the best you could with it all. Um, so when did because eventually you ended up building up your own roster of artists and your own crew and all that. When did all of that kind of fizzle out, or did it even fizzle out? Because from what I understand, like it kind of did after a little while.
So like, I always known. So it's the okay.
'Cause
So like, damn, there's
just
like
to
a
add a
few.
little, my fault, real quick, just to add a little context to it, like we kind of had a falling out. So
Yeah.
I wasn't messing with you no more, and I wasn't involved in any of that anymore. So I know you kind of kept it moving with your roster, but eventually, like I said, it kind of fizzled out. So what led
Well,
to all that?
I mean, like, truth be told, like all the homies, we've all had ups and downs together, and
Yeah.
that's gonna be a single that'll come out in May. But anyways,
Ups and
um,
downs.
dude, you should see the album cover I'm making. We're on a roller coaster going through a weed field and shit. Me, you, and Javon are in the little coaster.
Yeah.
The ups and downs. But yeah, I've had a lot of fallouts. Like even at the time when I first bought the equipment in the second era, I used to know these younger guys, Gary and Dino. And one night I felt disrespected and they were kind of sticking up for their cousin. Well, because when I bought the stuff, everybody was on my nuts. You know what I mean? Like all these fake groupies, men or what, they would come around, all this fake love, you know what I mean? And to me, if you weren't there, I mean, fast forward, rewind a little before I fell into some money, I was dead fucking broke. Like I remember walking to the gas station, 75 cents for a black and mild, and I ran into one of my old SA homies and he said, "Hey bro, what happened? Where's your wife? Where's your kids? You guys were like the Kodak family." And he hadn't seen me single without my baby mom and stuff. And I was down and out. I was sleeping on Remo's couch with his uncle.
Yeah,
We had
I
to sleep.
remember
We,
those
we
days.
had to sleep. We slept head to head, so our feet, nah, I wouldn't touch. We didn't cuddle. Shit.
um,
Uh, But I mean, like, and I mean that's the truth. I was real down and out. I went and my homie seen me. He said, "Damn, Joe, what's going on?" He gave me a bag of weed and he said, "Hey, talk to me and I'll put you to work." And then that's when I started putting in work. And then I came up, and then so back to over there at Dino's and them, they lived, or Gary, he lived in this one bedroom apartment. Well, I would stay over there on his couch because I would bounce around, and I had all the equipment over there, and I'd buy little by little, I'd buy speakers, then I bought the mic, but yeah, and then I remember we got it on. I was like, how do you fucking record, And then so we all learned. We learned, Dino Dose One, he loved to make beats. Like it just come natural to him. Like he was really good at it. Like I mean, I'm sure he still is to this day. And
mhm.
he would just knock out the beats, and I didn't like fucking with beats. Like I know how to make beats. I can make beats. I just don't like doing it. I'm lazy nowadays. I'll pay for that shit. I'll buy beats. But anyways, Dino would make beats. So I said, fuck, we should start making original music. But at the time, I was just kind of grateful for be alive and have money, and I would just party all the time, and we knock out freestyles and shit again. And I would get albums done, but I never put nothing out. I never put money into us and the company and stuff. I was just, well, it was like, hey, bro, let's go to a titty bar tonight. We'll come back, get, freestyle till the morning. And, that was my life. Basically, I like how I think you used to say it. You said, you lived like a, you lived like a rich rap star, but you weren't even a rap star, like, like Cause yeah, I know.
Yep.
But and I was at the time. Um, After Gary's house, we had a fight. I got in a fight. We were all drunk. Whatever. I felt disrespected. They were trying to be disrespectful. Whatever. Fuck you guys. Fuck that. I bounced. I ended up staying with the I don't really like this with Sarah's cousin Steven. Um and they said rent this place, this townhouse or whatever. And they ended up moving. He ended up buying a house and he kept the townhouse and I just paid the rent there. I literally like used the one room, the upstairs I never used. And I was paying ridiculous amount of money for that place. But that was at the time we had our own place. We could just get food and we had the equipment. We knew how to record and everything. So that was when we started the drunken tapes. And that was our mixtape stuff. And Remo and Nicole were always there hanging out. Well, because that was at the time Remo was starting to have his kids, and he met Nicole and it and that. And so they would come hang. Nicole would, we buy food and everything. They'd come hang out. Me and Remo would fucking find a mixtape, and we start writing these songs.
We were
And
there
so,
almost every day.
yeah, yeah, it was like a routine, huh?
Seriously. Like my daughter really spent a lot of her first year into, in studios. She was in a lot of studios. She was at the lab a lot. She was in the drunken lab a lot, so there was a whole lot of that kind of stuff. Um, we're actually coming up on our second hour here pretty soon. So this is funny because we're gonna have three parters for both both of our interviews at least. There's
Well,
still so much more of the story to tell. But
yeah, like I said, there we have a lot to say. We have a lot of the story because, like, even too, like I said, I summed it up quick with the case, but you would not believe, and like I said, I do want to record it and get it out there because people would not believe the stuff that you have to go through for the system. Plus, I want to warn other people, like, if you are going through something and you are in the right, you need to like research the court cases. You need to see what people are saying, and you do got to fight back because the end of it, the lady admitted like this is a corrupt system that's designed to take your kids and put them in foster care. And I was like, you know, but yeah, I mean, we just have a lot to say. But yeah, we could end it right there at Steven's house with the drunken tapes because yeah, that's just for
well, that
that's
kind of
just that.
opened a whole new chapter there. You know what I'm
Yeah,
saying?
yeah.
But I would actually like to end it like kind of how we ended with mine and stuff. Like, so where can we find the stuff that you already have out, and what can we expect as far as what's to come soon?
Well, I have this homie named Remo, and he said, "Hey, bro, you get on this disco kid and
Distro, distro,
distro dist
distro.
mistro kid, all right." And he said, uh um oh fuck, see that's another story too. But Remo was like, "Hey man, you need to get your cut because I'm putting my album out and you help pay for the album." So that's another story. We could probably we'll get into that next time.
Yeah.
But but uh so I'm like, what is this shit, you know? And then so like a year passed by and it was like these guys are hitting me up like you need to pay your yearly subscription, blah blah blah. And I'm like, man, fuck you guys, dude, leave me alone. And so I even hit up Remo like, hey bro, if I stop paying for this and if I cancel my account, will it affect your music that's up already? He's like, nah, go ahead. So something in my head, I always get these sporadic, stupid ideas. So something in my head said, hey, why not pay for it? Why not look into it and see about putting your music out? Because a well known, unknown secret, I guess, is I always made music for just me. I never wanted to put it out to the masses. I started putting music out because I got tired of people hitting me up like, hey, where's your music at? Where can I find it? So I was like, all right, let me put that shit out. So 10 years ago, I put out this Never Ever album. And I put it out through CD Baby. It's still out through them to this day. Um and it was a work of art. Me and I have to tell the story about that album and all that. But me and Dos Dino did it. He did all the beats. I was kind of behind, like, hey, put that sound in there. Yeah, yeah, that sounds cool. Yeah, do this, do that. Me and him both did it. We did that album and put it out. It's been out for 10 years. I haven't released anything for 10 years, but I never stopped recording. I never stopped freestyling. I never stopped because I've always had my own equipment. I just couple years back, I wanted to upgrade everything again. So I upgraded everything again. So now I'm starting up again. But like I said, I took a lot of time out of my life because I said I had the kids. I didn't want to bring all this elements and all this bad shit and women and rap and all this lifestyle around my kids.
Yeah.
So I stepped back from all that. But I like I said, I never stopped doing it on my own. But so so right now I'm starting to drop singles. I got two singles coming out from my groups from different tracks and this and that. They're gonna be dropping till the end of this month. May I'm gonna drop a double CD. The one's already out, the Demonic Aftermath Volume 2, but I'm gonna remaster it and put that version out, and I'm gonna put Volume 1 out. Volume 1 features a lot of wild stuff on there. A lot of I got Curtis's beats, I got Anton beats, I got a lot of other people's beats. I'm gonna put that double CD out in May. I'll probably release more singles out through the summer, and then October I'm gonna release the Legion album. And yeah, but um we were talking about Master P. Uh, he used to drop like an album every month. He was just boom flooding the market, boom, boom, boom. So back in the day, me and Remo used to say I just shit on him, and I think it's my time to shit on the industry, and I want to flood the market Master P style and just drop all my music out and just see what the hell happens.
Well, I'm excited to see what happens with it also, and I know there's a lot of that stuff that I haven't heard in a long time that I would like to hear again. So I'm kind of excited to see what happens here. So where can we find it all out? Is it
So
on
like,
Spotify?
it's on Spotify. I mean, you look up SoulDouja, SoulDouja. I'm like, how do I spell that for a second? But I mean, I always tell people just Google it. So if you like to listen to music on iTunes, it's on iTunes. If you like to listen to music on Spotify, it's on Spotify. I mean, there's so many things nowadays to listen to music, but that company for other people that are putting out music and stuff, that's a good company to go through because it's really not expensive. It's really affordable, and they actually put your music out everywhere. And I've tested it.
Mhm.
It's out on TikTok. It's everywhere. I've checked it
Mhm.
all and everything. And then it's kind of funny because I got tired of putting reels out with other people's music.
Yeah.
So so I got irritated about that. So that was one of the sparks that was like, I'm gonna put my music out and I'm gonna have my own music playing because why am I gonna have everybody else's music playing?
I
So
mean, you
that
ain't
was one.
wrong, like that's how you should be doing it.
Mhm.
So,
But yeah,
well,
basically, I mean, I'm on YouTube. Also, another thing that started real quick is Hohola Media. Um, and that's JOJOLA Media. I have a YouTube page with that where um I have a podcast on there. What's I have a few podcasts. That's another thing. Basically, Drunken Style Records was the record label forever for just rap. I wanted to start a media company that opens the doors to documentaries, short films, podcasting, music. There's a lot of other things that's gonna fall under this. So that's the new thing. You can look up Hohola Media, the latest stuff's on there, but I still put stuff out for under SoulDouja and under Drunken Styles, not so much. But there is a ton of stuff out on Drunken Style Records still.
before we wrap it up, we didn't really get into the fitness or anything like that at all, which is also a big part of your life these days. So I would like for us to next time definitely touch on that. But before I let you go, and before we call this a wrap, I do want to bring up one more old school situation to see about your memories on it because it just popped up in my mind while we were talking about some of the old stuff. Do you remember? Do you remember Firework Wars?
Yeah.
Tell me your memories of firework wars.
I just kind of remember we would go out in the field, which was by my apartment, and we would shoot Roman candles and bottle rockets on it because there's a massive, it was like soccer fields, wasn't it? Like right there.
Yeah.
Yeah, and we would just shoot each other. But that's all about I remember.
That was one of the craziest situations, and I remember feeling like we were literally in war because we were like two teams, and we was like just going off on each other with all this stuff. And I don't remember if it was the 4th of July or not. I feel like it was, but we were just
What
kind
was
of
that?
going off. I was wearing a wife beater at the time, and by the time we were done, I had burn holes, bullet holes, all these little things all in my white beater all over the place. And I remember feeling like I was a soldier in war, just holding these cannons in my hands, just ba boom, ba boom, ba
Dude,
boom.
I remember like fools was ducking, motherfuckers jumping over each other, boom, boom, fucking, yeah. We see, that's what I mean. Like the whole drunken style thing was not just like drunken freestyle. It was a lifestyle that we were all kind of living. We all had fun. We were like happy drunks. You know what I mean? Like we would have fun. I mean, maybe that shit's dangerous, but no one's eye got blown out or nothing. A couple little burn marks. You were okay.
Yeah, nobody was injured during any of this kind of stuff, but we got lucky. That's putting it lightly.
Yeah,
Well, my
right.
brother, I appreciate you giving me some of your time. This has been an awesome interview. I feel like again we didn't even scratch the surface. There's still
I'm
so much
telling.
more of the story to tell.
I'm telling you, these are gonna have to be like a little mini series.
Or
Uh,
something. Yeah, either that or we're just gonna have to start doing some long form interviews that are deeper or something. I don't know what we're gonna have to do. But I appreciate you, my brother. Thank you for being vulnerable, like I said earlier, and thank you for sharing all the stuff that you did with us. Is there any last words or some kind of last send off that you would like to leave us with before we tell the people peace out?
um, just like I like this saying: mind over matter. If it's not in my mind, it don't matter. So you can address that with everything. But addiction's a real bad thing too nowadays. Don't let this control your whole life. You got to control this, and you can put it to your use. We're in control of our mind. Our mind's not in control of us. Um, you know, and another thing I wanted to say, and I keep forgetting to bring it up. But R.I.P. motherfucking Val Kilmer, dude. That was my
Oh,
dog.
yeah, I
Um,
saw you too, man. Yeah, that's terrible. That
um,
was yesterday or today?
yesterday. One of the biggest influences in my music was The Doors. That was one of my favorite childhood movies, and it was one by far one I still listen to their music to this day.
Yeah.
So I'm gonna rewatch that stuff and Val, in remembrance of Val Kilmer. But he lived here in Santa Fe,
Yeah,
and
I heard.
I want to just say yeah, R.I.P. to Val Kilmer.
Yeah. If you get a chance to, if you ever seen it, I don't know if you ever seen it, but if you get a chance to watch Thunderheart, that's my favorite Val
Oh,
Kilmer
dude, I
movie.
was talking about that to Nate today. I've seen
Yeah,
that movie. Yeah, that's a great movie.
yeah, it is. Well,
I
my brother, we're just about out of time right now. So
all right, for
R.I.P.
sure.
Val. Thank you, my brother Doge, and thank
Later.
you for listening. And let us know in the comments, what you thought about the interview. Like, comment, share, do the whole gamut. So thank you, everybody. And until next time, this is Mr. Vicious Remo Vinci out. Doja, say
So
peace.
Doja, we out.
Peace.
Peace.
For more reviews, shorts, and interviews from the Vicious Network, check out the